Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rogues Gallery. With the release of Black Panther Wakanda Forever later this year, I thought that now would be a good time to exhibit some of Black Panther's most notorious enemies. I will go through some of my preferred villains while showcasing some of the most impressive artwork for each character. Apologies in advance if I exclude some of your preferred villains, but I cannot possibly include them all. So let's start with some villains who dared to attack the King of Wakanda. Despite not being the biblical Satan, Mephisto is an extra-dimensional demon of immense power. Appearing to Earthmen in the traditional form of the devil, Mephisto strives to make deals with mortals and gods in order to possess their souls and confine them within his netherworld. This demon especially targets the souls of heroes for their purity, and has repeatedly sought to corrupt the soul of the noble Black Panther, who defeated him due to his spiritual connection to the Panther god. We now move on to an enemy who also has connections to Africa, Kraven the Hunter. Whilst working on an African safari, Sergei Kravenov learned how to track and kill big game before taking a mysterious serum that enhanced his speed and strength. Sergei would become Kraven the Hunter, and despite being more of a Spider-Man villain, he would clash with Black Panther on numerous occasions. The two had some brutal fights in the Marvel Knights era of Black Panther comics during the early 2000s. Our next pair of villains are perhaps more racially motivated in their attacks, which has seen them come into conflict with the protector of Hell's Kitchen. Josh Glenn was a delusional office worker who developed racist views about immigrants being responsible for the decline of America. Upon learning of the original hate-monger, aka Adolf Hitler, Glenn became obsessed with continuing his work and was fired from his job and later incarcerated for trying to steal firearms. Upon his release from prison, the original hate-monger would possess his body and grant him his own superpowers. Now as the hate-monger, Glenn would try to take revenge on the Black Panther, imprisoning him and recruiting a new nationalist vigilante known as the American Panther. Eventually, the Black Panther managed to expel the hate-monger's spirit from Glenn's body before he was arrested again for his crimes. Logically, we can only move on to the hate-monger's partner in crime, the American Panther. The American Panther's xenophobia began early in life when his mother's Swedish lover killed his father. These feelings were exacerbated when the murderer was released by a Swedish court due to a technicality. Panther would blame the corruption of foreigners for the injustice and dedicated himself to training for vengeance. He would eventually track down and execute his father's killer in Sweden before joining the NYPD. As an officer of the law, he would take out his frustrations on foreigners and immigrants before attracting the attention of the hate-monger who would enlist his services. Together, they would fight against the Black Panther in Hell's Kitchen. Our next series of villains have either invaded Wakanda to steal precious resources or to attack the nation itself. After being exposed to the resurrection altar, Baron Merkaba gained the ability to revive the dead and turn humans into zombie-like creatures. He stole technology from Wakanda to help stabilize these powers before joining Killmonger to defeat Black Panther. Our next rogue also invaded Wakanda, but not for its technology. This vampiric villain was more interested in a totem. Mulan is a centuries-old vampire that remains alive by feeding on totems that are the power source for the universe. One such version was the Panther totem located in Wakanda, which was protected by Black Panther. Mulan made his way through the kingdom protected by M'Baku and proceeded to devour Man-Ape by sucking the life force out of his body. Mulan was eventually defeated by the new Black Panther Shuri, who sent him into Limbo, where he was forced to do battle with the endless hordes of death. The theme of theft continues in this rogues gallery, as our next villain attempted to steal the nation's valuable vibranium. Physicist Ulysses Claw was developing a device that could turn sound into physical objects and required vibranium, an element only found in Wakanda. He travelled to the country and tried to seize the resource by killing King Tachana, but lost his right hand in battle when using his own sonic blaster. Eventually, he acquired vibranium on the black market and created a prosthetic device that could turn sound into matter, which replaced his hand. He would return to Wakanda and use this weapon to fight Black Panther, however was later converted into living sound and trapped within his own device. Our next vibranium thief is the well-known villain of the Fantastic Four, Dr. Doom. Victor Von Doom was badly scarred when he ignored Reed Richards' warning and activated his interdimensional communication device, which blew up in his face. Doom would subsequently make his way to Tibet, where an order of monks helped him forge his metal mask and armor as he became Dr. Doom. At this time, he would return to Latveria, where he would overthrow the monarch and become king. Doom's hunger for power continued as he initiated the Doom War in Wakanda in order to take control of its vibranium supplies. In retaliation, T'Challa, Shuri and a group of X-Men defended their nation from Doom's forces. However, Dr. Doom still managed to escape with the precious resource. Now armed with his new vibranium armor, Doom could control all metal. However, T'Challa later utilized a device that turned all of the world's vibranium inert. Despite rendering their most precious resource useless, T'Challa saved his people by defeating Dr. Doom. Another villain who dared to attack Wakanda is said to appear in the movie Wakanda Forever because he is the Lord of Atlantis. Prince Neymar is the mutant son of a blue-skinned Atlantean princess and an American sea captain. He was raised in the underwater kingdom of Atlantis and grew up despising all surface dwellers. Neymar would become extremely powerful, possessing superhuman strength and stamina. Ultimately, he and Black Panther would frequently clash due to the history of conflicts between Atlantis and Wakanda. Neymar would infamously strike at the golden city of Wakanda, causing a tidal wave that drowned thousands of citizens. Neymar would cause further chaos in Wakanda when he told Thanos that he could find an Infinity Stone there, which resulted in his invasion of the African nation. T'Challa would come close to killing Neymar in response, but the Submariner survived and ended up in the Ultimate Universe. We now move on to some true traitors amongst Black Panther's rogues gallery. These individuals went as far as to betray Wakanda itself. Death Tiger formerly served the nation of Wakanda before abandoning his duties to become a mercenary. When King T'Challa introduced Wakanda to the United Nations, M'Baku ordered a hit on T'Challa and Death Tiger was one of the assassins hired to perform the deed. Death Tiger would initially stalk T'Challa during his time as a Harlem schoolteacher before finally making his move. The two engaged in an epic battle, but Death Tiger was ultimately defeated when student Delroy Jenkins shot the mercenary with his handgun. We continue down the gallery towards our next villain, who has proved that Wakanda hath no malice like a woman scorned. As a member of Wakanda's Dore Milaje, a group of deadly women that act as the king's fiercest bodyguards, Nakia spent most of her youth studying under and protecting King T'Challa. This ultimately led to her all-consuming infatuation with the King of Wakanda. She failed to accept that her role was merely ceremonial and not romantic. Nakia's jealousy eventually poisoned her mind as she attempted to kill the king's former lover, which saw her banished to her home village in disgrace. She was later tortured and left to die by Black Panther's foe Okbe before being resurrected and transformed into the agent of evil known as Malice by Killmonger. As Malice, Nakia has become one of Black Panther's deadliest foes. Betraying Wakanda is bad enough, however our next trio of villains turn their backs on family. When his parents died in a plane crash in Wakanda, Hunter, a Caucasian, was adopted by King T'Chaka. However, Hunter grew jealous when T'Chaka fathered T'Challa, the rightful heir to the throne. Despite this, Hunter was made the leader of Wakanda's secret police force until T'Challa became king and disbanded the unit as he objected to their brutal methods. As a result, Hunter and his men left Wakanda to become mercenaries, and the Black Panther's enemy in White Wolf was born. We now transition from adopted families to blood relations with Black Panther's biological sister. Tachana and the rest of her siblings were defeated by their brother T'Challa in a contest to determine the rightful successor to the throne. Proving to be a sore loser, she left Wakanda with the purpose of increasing her magical abilities in order to overthrow her brother. Arriving in Latveria, she became a disciple of its ruler Victor Von Doom, who trained her until she used her powers to steal his armor and assume the mantle of the nation's leader. As a result, Tachana from Earth 2301 has all of Doom's intellect, capacity for evil, and magical capabilities. Tachana is one of the most powerful variants of Dr. Doom in the Marvel Universe. We now head across to another jealous Wakandan sibling in Jakara. Born the son of Wakandan King T'Chaka and spy Matina, Jakara was raised abroad. Sometime following the death of T'Chaka, Jakara travelled to Wakanda to demand his birthright. After joining the outcasts of the Hyena clan, Jakara would confront T'Challa at the Barrier Volcano complex. It was here where Jakara stabbed himself with a dagger as he was being exposed to the vibranium pipe's energies. His body metabolized the vibranium, converting the heat energy into mass, which transformed Jakara into a monstrous being. Ultimately, Black Panther managed to defeat Jakara by programming the emitter of a dagger with a destabilizing energy sequence before stabbing his enemy with it. This caused Jakara muscular paralysis, who was later thrown into a volcano, so the energy overload would keep him in stasis. Our final group of rogues have gone as far as to commit treason, as they have tried to overthrow the King of Wakanda. This powerful Wakandan magician once tried to overthrow T'Challa as King of Wakanda. Tatu left civilization in search for knowledge beyond the physical realm and retreated to the wilderness of Wakanda. He returned changed, with the ability to manipulate the forces of nature and decide to use his power to punish the avaricious. In his search for a better Wakanda, Tatu rallied a group of rebels known as the People and allied himself with Zenzi and the Ugandan army to overthrow Black Panther. He would later seek the help of Ezekiel Stain, who armed their war efforts with his repulsor technology. When Tatu's troops arrived at the Golden City, they found themselves outnumbered by Black Panther, his allies, and the manifestation of the souls of Necropolis, who included all past Black Panthers. Tatu's soldiers were quickly subdued and returned to their human forms, whilst Tatu himself was apprehended by T'Challa. Since we mentioned him, let's go straight to the deadly weapons dealer himself, Ezekiel Stain. Obadiah would push his son into hating and becoming superior to his rival Tony Stark. Upon his father's death, Ezekiel Stain became determined to take revenge and began building a new generation of weaponry for terrorists and supervillains. One such example of this was when he tried to remove T'Challa as King of Wakanda. Stain would supply weapons for the People, a Hydra-backed populist revolutionary movement attempting to overthrow the monarchy. We now take a look at the third member of the rebellion and leader of the Ugandan army, Zenzi. Zenzi was an Ugandan woman with the ability to enhance and bring to light people's deepest emotions. When she was about to be killed by the troops of the late Killmonger in the edge of a mass grave, she managed to affect her would-be executioners and make them kill each other. She later became the leader of the Ugandan army and allied herself with Tatu, the head of the Wakandan rebel movement known as the People, and used her abilities to incite riots in order to help overthrow T'Challa. After failing, Zenzi joined forces with Baron Zemo in order to take control of the minds of Wakanda's soldiers. Together, they would try to force Black Panther to hand over the Cosmic Cube fragment he had hidden. Now straight on to another individual who tried to stir up an uprising in Wakanda, Reverend Okbe. Okbe was once a peasant farmer in Africa who fell victim to rebel guerrillas from a neighbouring country. Now filled with hatred, Okbe would make a bargain with Mephisto and gained new powers to hunt down the people who destroyed his village. He would use his political powers to create unrest in Wakanda and even instigated a scandal around the Black Panther that caused him to stay in the United States whilst the investigation took place. At this time, Okbe would use the Black Panther's absence to initiate a coup against the Wakandan government. However, Okabe's rule would come into question as he slipped further into insanity and was ultimately overthrown by Black Panther. Our penultimate villain also tried to wrestle the throne of Wakanda away from T'Challa. Whilst the Black Panther was away helping the Avengers in the US, M'Baku conspired to seize his throne as King of Wakanda and return the nation to its primitive history. Reviving the outlawed white gorilla cult, M'Baku killed a rare white gorilla, then bathed in its blood and ate its flesh, which gave him the power of the ape. Calling himself Man-Ape, he battled Black Panther and the Avengers, but was eventually defeated by Captain America. Man-Ape did not try to return to Wakanda, where he would have faced the death penalty, but instead teamed up with the Grim Reaper and the Lethal Legion to extract his revenge on the Avengers. Finally, we move on to one of Black Panther's greatest enemies, who was brilliantly depicted by Michael B. Jordan in the 2018 movie, Eric Killmonger. N'Jadaka suffered a difficult childhood when a rebellious Wakandan plotted with the nation's enemies to usurp the power of the Black Panther's throne. This eventually resulted in his exile and the murder of his family. When N'Jadaka returned to Wakanda as Killmonger, he would initially bide his time before extracting the ultimate revenge. Frustrated that the King T'Challa was going to allow Wakanda to open its borders to the outside world, Killmonger eventually challenged T'Challa to the leadership ritual of combat. Eric was able to finally defeat the Panther and became ruler of the nation for a time. However, when he consumed the heart-shaped herb which was his right as king, his body reacted adversely as it was poisonous to those not of the royal bloodline, which left him in a coma. That brings an end to this tour of the Black Panther's villains. Please be aware that I'll be returning with the villains of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Iron Man later this year, but let me know which other galleries you'd like me to visit. Until next time, it's goodbye from me. Take care.